The fabric of my dress, a cheerful sunflower yellow I chose for Maya, feels suddenly like sandpaper against my skin. The applause is a roaring ocean, deafening, but all I hear is the frantic thumping in my own chest, a wild bird trapped against my ribs. He's down on one knee. Not Mark, my husband. No, Mark is standing a few feet away, beaming, actually beaming, as if this is the proudest moment of his life. This man, this stranger in a well-tailored suit, is proposing. At my daughter's graduation party. To a woman I've never seen before, a woman whose smile is a predatory flash of white in the festive garden lights. My breath catches, a sharp, jagged thing in my throat.
Maya.
Where is Maya? I scan the crowd, my vision blurring. The laughter, the surprised gasps, they're all distant echoes from another world. This world, right here, has tilted on its axis, and I'm sliding off the edge. His voice, amplified slightly by the microphone he must have commandeered, cuts through the buzzing in my ears. Candace, my love, my life, Candace. Her name is Candace. It sounds like something cheap and synthetic. The ring he holds up glitters, a cruel, mocking star. My own ring, the one Mark gave me 22 years ago, suddenly feels heavy, a cold band of forgotten promises on my finger.
This isn't happening.
This is a nightmare, a grotesque parody of joy. But the faces around me, contorting from celebration to confusion, to pity, oh God, the pity, they tell me it's real. Mark catches my eye. Just for a second. And in that second I see it.
Not apology.
Not regret. Triumph. He planned this. He wanted me to see this. The sunflower yellow of my dress feels like a scream I can't let out. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. My world just imploded in 1,000 glittering pieces, and I'm trying to remember how to breathe. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me piece things back together, more than you know. Just this morning, the world was painted in shades of pride and nervous excitement. Maya's graduation. Valedictorian. The culmination of so many years, so many late nights, so many dreams meticulously woven together. Our house, usually a calm haven, buzzed with a frantic energy. I remember fluffing Maya's hair, the dark silkiness of it, so like Mark's when we first met. You're going to be amazing, sweetie, I'd whispered, my voice thick with emotion. She'd rolled her eyes, that teenage dismissal that couldn't quite hide her own fluttering nerves. Mom, it's just a speech, just a speech. As if it wasn't the opening notes of her future symphony. Mark had been Mark. Charming, solicitous, a little distant. He'd kissed my cheek, a dry, perfunctory peck. Big day for a girl, he'd said, already checking his phone. I'd registered the faint scent of an unfamiliar cologne, but dismissed it. He had important clients, meetings. He always smelled of something new, something expensive. It was part of the package, the successful architect, the man who built empires of glass and steel while ours, apparently, was crumbling from within. I'd spent weeks planning this party. The caterer, the flowers, sunflowers, Maya's favorite, the string quartet playing softly in the garden. Every detail perfect. A testament to our family. Our perfect family. What a fool I've been. A blind, trusting fool. The normal I cherished, the life I thought we were building, it was all a carefully constructed stage set, and I was the only one who didn't know the play was a tragedy. My desire then was simple, to see my daughter shine, to bask in her reflected glory, to feel that quiet satisfaction of a job well done, a child raised right. Now, that desire feels like a relic from another lifetime, buried under the rubble of this public humiliation. The inciting incident wasn't the proposal itself. No, that was the explosion. The fuse was lit much earlier, subtly, insidiously. It was in the hushed phone calls Mark started taking in his study, the door always slightly ajar, then firmly closed. It was in the late nights at the office, the weekend conferences that left him energized in a way his work hadn't in years. It was in the silences that grew between us, vast, echoing spaces where laughter used to reside. I'd tried to bridge them, of course. Is everything okay, Mark? You seem stressed. He'd wave a dismissive hand. Just work, honey. Big project. You know how it is. I didn't know. Or, I thought I did. I knew the pressure of deadlines, the weight of responsibility. I'd supported him through lean years and celebrated his triumphs. I was his partner, his confidant. Or so I believed. The graduation ceremony itself was beautiful. Maya, radiant in her cap and gown, delivered her speech with a poise that made my heart swell. She spoke of dreams and challenges, of gratitude and hope. I'd clutched Mark's hand, tears in my eyes, and he'd squeezed back, his gaze fixed on our daughter. A flicker of the old Mark, the man I married. A cruel illusion. The party was in full swing. Laughter mingled with the music, the scent of roses and grilled shrimp hung in the warm evening air. Maya was surrounded by friends, her face flushed with happiness. I watched her, a fierce, protective love surging through me. This was her day. Nothing could spoil this. And then I saw her, Candace. She arrived late, a striking brunette in a dress that was a little too tight, a little too red for a family celebration. She scanned the crowd with an air of ownership, her eyes landing on Mark. He excused himself from a conversation with Maya's grandparents, a tight, almost boyish grin on his face. He walked towards her, and for a moment, I thought she was a new client, perhaps. Someone important he'd forgotten to mention. He led her towards a small, makeshift stage we'd set up for Maya's speech and the toasts. I felt a prickle of unease. Why there? He tapped the microphone, the feedback screeching for a moment, drawing everyone's attention. Excuse me, everyone, he began, his voice smooth, confident. A special day deserves a special announcement, and then he turned to her, his back to me, to our life, to everything we had built. The world went silent, waiting. And then he knelt. The immediate aftermath is a blur of noise and sensation. The microphone clatters to the ground as Candace, this stranger with my husband's ring on her finger, throws her arms around him. There are cheers, hesitant at first, then swelling from a corner of the garden where, I now realize, his newer, younger colleagues are gathered.
People who don't know me.
People who don't know our history. My friends, our old friends, are frozen, their faces a mixture of horror and disbelief. Maya. I finally spot her. She's standing near the buffet table, a half-eaten vol au vent falling from her fingers. Her face, moments ago so bright with triumph, is pale, stricken. Her eyes meet mine across the suddenly too crowded lawn, and the devastation in them is a physical blow. She knows. Of course she knows. She's not a child. She sees her father, on his knee, proposing to another woman. At her party. My legs feel like lead, but I move. I have to get to her. Each step is an eternity. The festive lanterns seem to mock me, their cheerful glow illuminating this catastrophe. Maya. I manage, my voice a dry rasp. She just stares, her lower lip trembling. Mark is on his feet now, beaming, accepting congratulations from his cheering section. He hasn't even looked for me. Or perhaps he has, and he's enjoying the show. Candace clings to his arm, her laughter high-pitched and triumphant. She's parading him, parading her victory. My victory, I suppose she thinks. A small, furious voice inside me whispers, not if I can help it. But right now all I can focus on is Maya. I reach her, and her hand, when I take it, is ice cold. Mom, she whispers, her voice barely audible above the renewed buzz of the party, a buzz that now has a sharp, scandalized edge. Let's go inside, I say, trying to keep my own voice steady, trying to shield her. But where is inside? Our home? It no longer feels like ours. It feels violated, defiled. Some of our guests are already making their excuses, their eyes darting towards me with expressions of pity I can't bear. Mrs. Henderson, my neighbor for 15 years, touches my arm. Eleanor, dear, are you all right? Her voice is kind, too kind. I can't break down. Not here. Not in front of Maya. We're fine, Martha. I lie, forcing a smile that feels like broken glass. Just a little overwhelmed. That's one word for it.
Shattered.
Humiliated.
Betrayed.
Those are others. I steer Maya towards the house, away from the spectacle in the garden. Mark is still there, holding court, the conquering hero with his new queen. He doesn't even notice us leave. Or if he does, he doesn't care. Inside, the house is quiet, the sounds of the party muffled. Maya collapses onto the sofa, her beautiful dress, the one we picked out together, bunching around her. The tears finally come, silent, heartbroken sobs that rack her small frame. I sit beside her, pulling her close, stroking her hair, the same way I did when she was a little girl with a scraped knee. But this is a wound no bandage can fix. He wouldn't, she chokes out. Not today. Not like this. Oh, but he would, my darling.
He did.
The cruelty of it is breathtaking. The calculated, deliberate nature of the humiliation. This wasn't a spontaneous act of love for this Candace. This was a statement, a declaration of war. And he chose Maya's brightest day to launch his offensive. The rage that has been simmering beneath the shock begins to boil.
How dare he?
How dare he do this to Maya?
To me?
To the memory of everything we shared? Later, much later, after Maya has cried herself into an exhausted sleep in her childhood bed, I find myself wandering through the silent house. The remnants of the party are still there, the half-eaten food, the abandoned glasses, the wilting sunflowers. Each one a painful reminder. I pick up a discarded party hat, a silly, glittering cone. It feels obscene. I walk into our bedroom. His side of the closet is half empty. I hadn't noticed. Or perhaps I hadn't wanted to. The signs were all there, weren't they? The gradual withdrawal. The emotional distance. The scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his shirts. I'd made excuses. For him. For us. I'd clung to the illusion of normal, of happy, because the alternative was too terrifying to contemplate. Now the terror is here. It's real. And it's staring back at me from my own reflection in the darkened window, a woman I barely recognize, her face pale, her eyes hollow. But beneath the shock, something else is stirring. A cold, hard knot of anger. He wants a war? He'll get one. He may have fired the first shot, a devastating, public volley. But he has no idea what I'm capable of when I'm pushed too far. Especially when it involves my daughter. The fight for survival, for dignity, begins now. I try to reach him on his phone. It goes straight to voicemail, his familiar, cheerful greeting now a grotesque mockery. Hi, you've reached Mark. Leave a message, and I'll get back to you, will you, Mark? Will you really? Or are you too busy celebrating your new life, built on the wreckage of ours? I leave no message. What is there to say that isn't already screaming in the silence of this house? The first few days are a thick fog of disbelief and a pain so sharp it steals my breath. Sleep is a luxury I can't afford. When I do drift off, the image of Mark on one knee, that glittering ring, jerks me awake, my heart pounding. Maya is my shadow, quiet and watchful. Her own grief is a heavy blanket in the house, muffling the usual sounds of her music, her laughter. She's trying to be strong for me, I know, but I see the hurt in her eyes, the confusion. How does a daughter reconcile the father who taught her to ride her bike with the man who publicly shattered her mother? I make calls. My sister, Sarah, whose voice cracks with fury when I tell her. My closest friends, who rally around with offers of food, company, legal advice. Their support is a lifeline, but it can't fill the chasm that has opened in my life. I have to face Mark. Sooner or later. He finally graces us with his presence 3 days later. He lets himself in with his key, as if nothing has happened, as if he still belongs here. He finds me in the kitchen, staring into a cold cup of coffee. Eleanor, he says, his tone cautious, as if approaching a spooked animal. I don't turn around. I can't look at him. Not yet. You need to get your things, I say, my voice flat, devoid of the emotion churning inside me. All of them, he sighs, a sound of put-upon exasperation that ignites a fresh spark of anger. Can we at least talk about this rationally? Rationally? He wants to talk rationally? After that stunt? There's nothing to talk about, Mark, I say, finally turning to face him. He looks different.
Smug.
There's a self-satisfied smirk playing around his lips that makes me want to scream. You made your statement. Loud and clear. Now get out. This is my house too, Eleanor, he says, his voice hardening. And Candace and I are getting married. We need to discuss the arrangements. The divorce, the word hangs in the air, cold and ugly.
Divorce.
Of course. That was the point of his little drama. To force my hand, to make it clear there was no going back. Get a lawyer, Mark, I tell him, my voice shaking despite my best efforts. And then send him to my lawyer, his eyes narrow. Don't make this difficult, Eleanor. Difficult? A hysterical laugh bubbles up. You think this is difficult? You humiliated me in front of my friends, my family, our daughter, on what should have been one of the happiest days of her life, and you think I'm going to make this difficult? He has the grace to look momentarily uncomfortable, but it passes quickly. It was abrupt. I'll grant you that. But it was the only way to make you see. We haven't been happy for years, Eleanor. You know that. I stare at him, speechless. We haven't been happy? Is that his justification? Was I living in a completely different marriage? There were stresses, yes. The normal wear and tear of 2 decades together. But I thought we were solid. I thought we were a team. He continues, oblivious to the fresh wave of pain his words inflict. Candace makes me happy. She understands me. Understands his need for public degradation of his wife, perhaps. Understands his monumental selfishness. Get out, Mark. I repeat, my voice deadly quiet. Just
get
out. He hesitates, then shrugs. A careless gesture that speaks volumes.
Fine.
I'll send my lawyer, but don't expect me to roll over. I've worked hard for what we have. Suddenly it's we again when it comes to assets? The hypocrisy is stunning. He leaves, and the silence he leaves behind is a relief. But it's also terrifying. The battle lines are drawn. And I'm alone. Or I feel like I am. Maya appears in the doorway, her face etched with worry. Mom? Are you okay? I try to smile. A weak, watery attempt. I will be, sweetie. We will be. But as I say the words, I'm not sure I believe them. The struggle is just beginning. The initial shock starts to wear off, replaced by a gnawing anxiety and a simmering rage that I have to keep tightly controlled, especially around Maya. Mark's lawyer, a piranha named Ms. Devereaux, sends over the first volley, a divorce petition so full of audacious claims and outright lies it makes my blood boil. He's claiming I was emotionally distant, that I was the one who let the marriage deteriorate. He's angling for the house, a significant portion of our joint assets, and minimal spousal support, citing his new responsibilities, meaning Candace, presumably. Candace. The name itself is a constant irritant. I see her face in my mind's eye, that smug, triumphant smile. She's younger than me, by at least 15 years, with a certain predatory gloss. Mark, in his mid-50s, is clearly besotted, a classic midlife crisis cliché, but played out with such deliberate cruelty it transcends cliché and becomes pure malice. I hire my own lawyer, a woman named Sharon Grant, recommended by a friend. Sharon is sharp, empathetic but no nonsense. She reads through Devereaux's letter, her expression grim. He's playing dirty, Eleanor, she says, her voice calm but firm. We need to be prepared for a fight. I'm so tired. I just want this to be over. But I look at Maya, who's tiptoeing around the house, trying to be invisible, her own future plans overshadowed by this domestic bomb. And I know I can't just roll over. I have to fight. For her. For myself. For the 22 years he's trying to erase. The first attempts to adapt are clumsy, painful. I try to create a new routine, a semblance of normalcy. But everything is a reminder. The empty space in the bed. His clothes, still hanging in the closet because he hasn't bothered to collect all of them yet. The photographs on the wall, mocking me with images of a happy family that no longer exists. Or maybe never did. Financially, things are suddenly precarious. Mark, it turns out, has been quietly siphoning funds from our joint accounts for months. Not large amounts, nothing that would trigger alarm bells, but a steady drain. Sharon calls it anticipatory asset dissipation. I call it theft. He's cut off my access to his main business accounts, claiming they are separate property. The arrogance is breathtaking. I start going through our financial records, years of statements, tax returns, investment portfolios. It's a bewildering maze of numbers and jargon. I was a teacher before Maya was born, then a stay-at-home mom, managing the household, supporting his career. He always handled the big finances, patting my head and telling me not to worry my pretty little head about it. Now I'm forced to worry.
Forced to understand.
Forced to untangle the web he's woven. The social fallout is equally painful. Some friends are staunchly supportive. Others are awkward. They don't know what to say. Invitations dry up. Whispers follow me at the grocery store. I'm suddenly the woman whose husband left her for a younger model, a sad, pitiable figure. I hate it. I hate the pity even more than the whispers. Maya is struggling too. Her friends are supportive, but she feels the shame, the embarrassment. Her father's actions have cast a long shadow. She was supposed to be planning her college orientation, picking out dorm room essentials. Instead, she's listening to my hushed, anxious phone calls with Sharon, watching me pore over bank statements with a frown etched on my face. "Mom, maybe we should just give him what he wants," she says one evening, her voice small. Just to make it stop, I look at her, at the weariness in her young eyes, and my heart breaks a little more. But a new resolve hardens within me. "No, sweetie," I say, my voice firmer than I feel. He doesn't get to destroy our lives and then just walk away with everything. He doesn't get to win that easily. The early struggles are a daily grind of small humiliations, financial anxieties, and the crushing weight of betrayal. But with each passing day, a tiny sliver of steel is forged in my soul. He may have knocked me down, but I'm starting to get back up. And I'm starting to realize that the only way out is through. The challenges escalate. Mark, emboldened by Candace's unwavering support, or perhaps her ambition, doubles down on his aggressive legal tactics. Ms. Devereaux sends a seemingly endless barrage of motions, requests for documents, interrogatories designed to overwhelm and intimidate. Each envelope from her office feels like a fresh assault. They contest every small claim, argue over every sentimental item. My grandmother's antique dresser? Suddenly, it's a marital asset of significant value that Mark feels entitled to. The collection of art we bought together over the years, each piece a memory? He wants it appraised and sold, the proceeds split according to his skewed interpretation of fairness. It's not about the things, I realize. It's about power. It's about grinding me down until I have nothing left to fight with. Candace, meanwhile, isn't content to stay in the background. She starts appearing in places she knows I frequent. The coffee shop where I meet my book club. The farmer's market on Saturday mornings. She's always impeccably dressed, always with a radiant smile, often with a new, expensive-looking handbag that I suspect was purchased with money that should have been ours. She doesn't approach me, not directly. But her presence is a constant, deliberate provocation. She posts pictures on social media, her and Mark beaming, clinking champagne glasses, on weekend getaways to places he always claimed he was too busy to take me. Tagging mutual acquaintances. Each post is a tiny, digital dagger. Maya sees them too, of course. She tries to hide it, but I see the flicker of pain in her eyes. This woman is not just replacing me. She's actively trying to erase me, to rewrite our history with herself as the star. The financial pressure intensifies. The legal bills are mounting. Mark, despite his claims of wanting a fair settlement, is dragging his feet on any interim support, forcing me to dip into my dwindling savings. I start looking for a job, but my teaching credentials are long out of date. The thought of starting over, at my age, in this emotional turmoil, is daunting. I'm digging deeper into the financial records, late into the night, fueled by coffee and a growing sense of desperation. Lines of numbers blur before my eyes. Spreadsheets become a landscape of confusion. I'm looking for something, anything, a discrepancy, a hidden account, something to give Sharon leverage. But Mark was always meticulous, always careful. Or so it seems. There are small anomalies, unexplained withdrawals, payments to companies I don't recognize. But are they evidence of wrongdoing, or just the normal course of his complex business dealings? I feel like I'm drowning in paper, in legal jargon, in his relentless, cold-hearted campaign. My friends try to help. Sarah, my sister, offers to lend me money, but I resist. This is my fight. Some days, the weight of it all is crushing. I find myself staring blankly out the window, the fight draining out of me. Maybe Maya is right. Maybe I should just give in, take whatever pittance he's offering, and try to salvage some peace. But then I see Maya's face, her quiet strength, her unspoken disappointment in her father, and the anger returns, cold and hard. He's not just attacking me, he's hurting our daughter. He's teaching her that betrayal pays, that ruthlessness wins. I can't let that be the lesson she takes from this. So I keep digging. I make endless cups of tea, staring at the swirling leaves as if the answers might be found there. I call Sharon with questions, trying to understand the legal strategies, the implications of each document. She's patient, but I can hear the unspoken pressure in her voice. We need a breakthrough. We need something to turn the tide. The obstacles are not just legal and financial, they're emotional. The man I loved for more than 2 decades, the father of my child, has become a monster, a stranger who looks at me with cold, calculating eyes. How do you fight someone you once shared your deepest secrets with? Someone who knows your vulnerabilities, your fears? He uses that knowledge, subtly, cruelly. He knows which buttons to push, which memories to taint. The rising challenges are relentless, a constant battery against my already fractured defenses. I feel like I'm fighting a war on multiple fronts, with dwindling resources and no clear path to victory. But somewhere, in the deepest part of me, a stubborn spark refuses to be extinguished. He underestimated me. He always did. He saw me as the quiet, supportive wife. He never saw the steel beneath the softness. He's about to find out. The turning point doesn't arrive like a thunderclap, no sudden revelation in a dusty attic. It's a slow burn, a dawning realization that coalesces from 1,000 tiny pieces of information I've been painstakingly gathering. I'm deep in Mark's old office files, boxes he'd stored in the basement and clearly forgotten about in his haste to start his new life. Most of it is boring, old architectural plans, client correspondence from years ago. But then I find it, a folder labeled simply Project Nightingale. It sounds innocuous, almost poetic. Inside are blueprints, but not for buildings. They're for a series of offshore shell corporations, intricate financial structures designed to move money in ways that are almost untraceable. And there are names, dates, amounts. Large amounts. Transferred over several years. I also find a separate, very slim file. It contains a prenuptial agreement. Not ours. Ours was straightforward, done when we were young and had nothing. This one is dense, complicated, and bears the signature of one Candace Moreau. And Mark. Dated just 6 months ago. My blood runs cold. This wasn't a whirlwind romance that swept him off his feet. This was planned. Calculated. For months. He was setting up his escape route, financially and legally, long before he humiliated me at Maya's graduation. He was protecting his assets not for me, but perhaps for Candace, or with Candace. But there's something else in the Project Nightingale folder. Correspondence with a financial advisor I don't recognize, discussing high-risk investments, leveraged ventures that seem wildly out of character for the cautious Mark I knew. Or thought I knew. And then a series of emails printed out between Mark and Candace. Not love letters. These are businesslike. Discussing timelines, asset transfers, strategies for minimizing fallout. Her tone is sharp, demanding. She's not just a lovesick girl. She's a partner in this. A very active, very shrewd partner. The realization hits me with the force of a physical blow. This isn't just about Mark leaving me for a younger woman. This is bigger. More complex. More sinister. Candace isn't just the other woman. She's a collaborator. And perhaps, just perhaps, she has her own agenda. My view of the situation shifts dramatically. I'm not just a scorned wife fighting for a fair divorce settlement. I'm up against a calculated, premeditated deception, a conspiracy to defraud me. And suddenly, the pieces start to click into place. The rushed proposal, the aggressive legal tactics, the attempts to portray me as unstable, unreasonable. They needed me out of the picture, quickly and quietly, before I could uncover any of this. The anger that has been my constant companion transforms into something colder, sharper. A steely resolve. They think I'm just a heartbroken woman, easily intimidated, easily defeated. They're about to discover how wrong they are. I gather the files, my hands trembling slightly, not with fear, but with a strange, almost exhilarating sense of purpose. This is it. This is the leverage Sharon and I have been searching for. This is more than just infidelity. This is potential fraud, conspiracy. This changes everything. My strategy shifts. It's no longer about defending myself. It's about exposing them. Not just for what they did to me, but for who they are. I look at the prenuptial agreement again. Candace Moreau. She's protected herself very well.
Or she thinks she has.
What if Mark isn't the wealthy, successful architect she thinks he is? What if those high-risk investments in Project Nightingale went sour? What if the money he's been siphoning isn't just from me, but to cover losses he's hiding from her? A new, audacious thought begins to form. What if the key to my victory lies not in destroying Mark, but in revealing the truth to Candace? Not the truth of his affair with her, she obviously knows that, but the truth of his financial situation, his deceptions that might extend even to her. The midpoint shift isn't just a realization, it's an awakening. I'm no longer just reacting to their attacks. I'm starting to see a path forward, a way to reclaim not just my assets, but my dignity, my power. The game has changed, and I'm about to make my first move. The deepening crisis feels like being caught in a slow, suffocating landslide. Despite the damning evidence I've uncovered in the Project Nightingale files, Mark and Candace seem untouchable, their offensive relentless. Ms. Devereaux, Mark's lawyer, dismisses my findings as misinterpretations of complex business dealings by a desperate and vindictive spouse. She threatens me with countersuits for defamation if I try to use this scurrilous information. They're trying to bury me in legal paperwork, bleed me dry financially, and discredit me emotionally. Mark has successfully frozen most of our joint assets, claiming they are tied to ongoing business ventures. Project Nightingale, no doubt. My access to funds is now severely restricted. The mortgage payment on the house is overdue. Utility bills are piling up. I'm forced to sell some of my mother's jewelry, pieces I'd hoped to pass on to Maya. Each sale is a small, bitter defeat, a chipping away at my heritage, my security. Candace is more brazen than ever. She's practically moved into Mark's new, sleek apartment downtown, an apartment I now suspect was furnished with money that should have been in our retirement fund. She posts pictures of their perfect life, intimate dinners, weekend trips to wine country, her flashing that gaudy engagement ring at every opportunity. Each post is a calculated barb, designed to inflict maximum pain. She even had the audacity to send a change of address card to our home, addressed to the occupant, with her and Mark's names elegantly printed beneath their new shared address. The cruelty is breathtaking in its pettiness. Maya is my rock, but I see the toll this is taking on her. She's deferred her college admission for a semester, wanting to stay close, to support me.
Guilt gnaws at me.
This is my fight, yet it's consuming her youth, her dreams. She takes a part-time job at a local bookstore to help with expenses, her quiet determination both a source of pride and a fresh stab of pain for me. She shouldn't have to do this. I try to shield her from the worst of it, but she's perceptive. She sees the unopened bills on the counter, hears the strained conversations with Sharon, feels the oppressive weight of uncertainty that has settled over our home. One evening, I find her crying silently in her room, staring at an old family photo, me, Mark, and a much younger, gap-toothed Maya, laughing on a beach vacation. "Why is he doing this to us, Mom?" she asks, her voice raw with a grief that mirrors my own. What did we ever do to him? I have no answers for her, only a hollow ache in my chest. All seems lost. Sharon, my lawyer, is doing her best, but she's candid. Eleanor, they have a formidable legal team, and Mark has hidden his assets very cleverly. Proving fraud in these kinds of offshore structures is incredibly difficult, time-consuming, and expensive. We can fight, but it's going to be a long, brutal battle, and there are no guarantees. The hope that had flared with the discovery of the Nightingale files begins to dim. What if they're right? What if I am just a desperate, vindictive spouse, tilting at windmills? What if Mark and Candace win, leaving me with nothing but ashes and debt? The thought is a cold stone in my stomach. I hit rock bottom one rainy Tuesday morning. A foreclosure notice arrives for the house. The official, impersonal language is a brutal confirmation of my worst fears. I'm going to lose my home, the place where I raised my daughter, the repository of 22 years of memories. I sit at the kitchen table, the letter trembling in my hand, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I allow myself to completely break down. Sobs rack my body, raw, guttural sounds of despair.
I'm failing. I'm failing Maya.
I'm failing myself. The evidence I have, the Nightingale files, the emails between Mark and Candace, even her prenup, it all feels like a handful of sand slipping through my fingers. How can I use it effectively when they have an army of lawyers ready to twist every fact, deny every claim? They're poisoning the well, painting me as unhinged, greedy.
Perhaps I am.
Perhaps this fight has pushed me to the brink. The house feels cold, empty, no longer a sanctuary, but a symbol of everything I'm about to lose. The cheerful yellow I once loved in the kitchen now seems sickly, mocking. The garden, Maya's sunflowers long dead from neglect and the changing season, is a barren patch of mud. Everything is decaying, falling apart, just like my life. The crisis deepens not with a bang, but with this slow, inexorable slide into hopelessness. The fight is too big, their resources too vast, their cruelty too profound. All seems lost, and the darkness threatens to swallow me whole. The turning point comes not in a courtroom or a lawyer's office, but in the quiet solitude of a sleepless night, surrounded by the debris of my former life and the mounting evidence of Mark's treachery. The foreclosure notice lies on my nightstand, a constant, accusing presence. Despair is a heavy cloak, and I'm so tired of wearing it. But as I stare at the ceiling, the shadows playing tricks on my eyes, something shifts within me. It's not a sudden surge of strength, but a flicker of cold, clear anger, a primal instinct to survive, to protect what's left. If I go down, I will not go down silently. I will not let them win without knowing they were in a fight. I get out of bed, the floorboards cold beneath my bare feet, and walk to my makeshift office in the spare room. The Nightingale files are spread across the desk, a chaotic testament to Mark's duplicity. I pick up Candace's prenuptial agreement again. I've read it so many times, focusing on what it protected for her from Mark. But what if I look at it differently? What if this document, designed to secure her future, is also her greatest vulnerability? She believes Mark is a wealthy, successful architect. Her prenup is predicated on that assumption. It meticulously details how his existing assets are protected, how any future wealth they accumulate together will be shared. But what if his existing assets are not what she thinks? What if Project Nightingale isn't a treasure chest, but a house of cards? I go back to the emails between Mark and Candace. Her tone is not just that of a lover, but of a business partner, someone keenly interested in the financial aspects of their new life. She asks pointed questions about timelines for asset liquidation, about securing their nest egg. She's no fool. She's ambitious. She hitched her wagon to Mark, believing him to be a star. What if I can show her he's a falling one? A new determination crystallizes within me. My previous attempts to use the Nightingale information through legal channels were met with stonewalling and threats. Devereaux and Mark control that narrative. But I don't need to convince a judge, not yet. I need to convince Candace. I need to show her that the man she's aligned herself with is not only a cheat and a liar to his wife, but potentially to her as well. That the gilded cage he's offering her might be nothing more than gilded bars. The plan begins to form, audacious and risky. I can't just send her the files. She'd dismiss them as a bitter wife's revenge. I need to present them in a way she can't ignore, in a way that appeals to her own self-interest. Maya finds me at dawn, hunched over the computer, a strange, fierce light in my eyes. The despair is gone, replaced by an unnerving calm. "Mom," she asks, hesitant. "Are you okay?" I look up at her, really look at her, and a surge of protective love washes over me. "I think so, sweetie," I say, a small, tired smile touching my lips. "I think I finally know what I have to do. This is no longer just about getting a fair settlement or surviving their attacks. This is about taking control of the narrative. This is about using their own tactics, deception, manipulation, self-interest against them. He chose to detonate our lives publicly. Perhaps a private, carefully orchestrated detonation is what's needed to disarm them. The decision is made. I will not be a passive victim dragged through the mud. I will set the stage for the final act. I start meticulously organizing the evidence, not for a lawyer, but for an audience of one. Candace. I focus on the discrepancies in Project Nightingale, the high-risk ventures that seem to have gone bad, the frantic shuffling of money that looks less like savvy investment and more like a desperate attempt to plug holes in a sinking ship. I find evidence of loans taken against assets Mark no longer fully owns, of guarantees made based on inflated valuations. He's not just hiding money from me, he's overextended, leveraged to the hilt. And Candace, with her carefully constructed prenup, might find herself married to a man whose financial empire is built on sand. The final piece clicks into place when I find a file detailing the purchase of her engagement ring. It wasn't bought with cash. It was financed, heavily, against an asset that is now part of the Nightingale morass. Even her symbol of commitment is tied to his precarious finances. The turning point is this: the realization that Mark's greatest weapon, his perceived wealth and success, might also be his Achilles heel, especially with a woman as pragmatic and ambitious as Candace clearly is. I will not fight him on his terms anymore. I will change the terms of engagement. And Candace will be the one to deliver the final blow. The air in the small, neutral-toned meeting room Sharon booked is thick with unspoken tension. It's not a law office, just a rented space, chosen for its anonymity. I sit on one side of the polished mahogany table. Across from me, Candace Moreau shifts uncomfortably in her chair. She's alone. That was my condition. No lawyers, no Mark. Just her and me. She looks immaculate, as always, her designer suit a sharp contrast to my own simple dress. But there's a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, a slight tremor in the hand that rests on her expensive leather handbag. She clearly wasn't expecting this, a direct summons from the woman she's systematically tried to erase. "What is this about, Eleanor?" she asks, her voice attempting a cool composure that doesn't quite land. "If it's about the settlement, Mark's lawyers are handling that. I don't get involved." "Oh, I think you'll want to be involved in this, Candace," I say, my voice calm, almost gentle. I slide a single, neatly bound folder across the table. It's not thick, not overwhelming. Just the choicest cuts from Project Nightingale, the emails, the prenup, the financing agreement for her ring. This isn't about Mark and me anymore. This is about Mark. And you. She eyes the folder with suspicion, then, with a sigh of impatient curiosity, opens it. I watch her face as she begins to read. It's a study in controlled emotion. At first, a faint frown. Then, a tightening of her lips. Her perfectly manicured fingers grip the pages a little tighter. The silence in the room stretches, broken only by the rustle of paper. I say nothing. I let the documents speak for themselves. I've highlighted key figures, damning phrases, the paper trail of Mark's deceptions. I see her eyes linger on the details of the high-risk investments, the sudden, unexplained losses. I see her scan the emails where Mark reassures her of their secure financial future, contrasting sharply with the bleak reality of the Nightingale ledgers. Then she reaches her own prenuptial agreement. She reads it slowly, her brow furrowed. I can almost see the calculations happening behind her eyes as she cross-references it with the financial statements I provided, statements that paint a very different picture of Mark's existing assets than the one he clearly sold her. The color drains slightly from her face when she gets to the financing details for her engagement ring, the one currently adorning her left hand. That glittering symbol of Mark's devotion, bought on credit, secured against assets that are evaporating. Her composure begins to crack. A small, almost imperceptible tremor runs through her. She looks up at me, her eyes narrowed, searching. What is this? Some kind of trick? Are these even real? They're real, Candace, I say quietly. Copies, of course. My lawyer has the originals.
You can verify them.
In fact, I insist you do. I lean forward slightly. Mark isn't just a liar and a cheat to me, Candace. He's been lying to you too. That empire he promised you? It's built on smoke and mirrors. He's drowning in debt, and he's been using Nightingale to try and hide it, to shuffle money around, probably hoping for a miracle investment to bail him out before anyone, including you, found out. Her gaze drops back to the papers, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, she's silent. Then she lets out a short, harsh laugh. It's not a sound of amusement. It's brittle, angry.
So what?
You expect me to thank you for this revelation? No, I say. I expect you to act in your own best interest. Just like you always do. That hits home. I see it in the slight flinch, the flash of anger in her eyes. The carefully constructed facade of the beloved fiancé is crumbling, revealing the pragmatist beneath. She closes the folder with a sharp snap. Mark will have an explanation for this, will he? I ask softly. Or will he have more lies? You're a smart woman, Candace. You've planned your future meticulously. Does this look like the future you signed up for? She stands abruptly, clutching the folder to her chest like a shield. Her face is pale, her eyes blazing. This changes nothing between Mark and me, doesn't it? I remain seated, calm. He didn't just betray me, Candace. He betrayed your trust, your ambition. He sold you a bill of goods. The question is, what are you going to do about it? She stares at me, a maelstrom of emotions warring on her face. Anger, disbelief, dawning comprehension, and something that looks remarkably like fear. Then, without another word, she turns and walks out of the room, her heels clicking sharply on the polished floor. The door closes behind her with a decisive thud. I sit there for a long moment, the silence echoing. My heart is pounding, but not with fear. With a strange, cold satisfaction. I've planted the seed. Now I just have to wait and see if it takes root. The real climax, I sense, is yet to come. And it won't be in this sterile meeting room. It will be when Candace confronts Mark. And he realizes that the woman he betrayed me for is about to discover he's not the prize she thought he was. He's about to be blindsided, not by me, but by the consequences of his own tangled web of deceit, a web I simply helped illuminate for the person who mattered most to his new life. The victim, me, has turned the tables, not through revenge, but through truth. And the victory, if it comes, will be far sweeter because he will have orchestrated his own downfall with the very person he chose over me. The call comes 2 days later. Not from Candace. Not from Mark. It's from Ms. Devereaux, Mark's piranha lawyer. Her voice, usually so sharp and aggressive, is clipped almost flustered. Ms. Grant, she says to my lawyer, Sharon, who patches me into the call. My client, Mr. Henderson, wishes to discuss an immediate settlement. He is amenable to a more equitable distribution of assets. Considerably more equitable. Sharon and I exchange a look. It's working. What prompted this sudden change of heart, Ms. Devereaux? Sharon asks, her voice smooth as silk. There's a pause. I can almost hear Devereaux grinding her teeth. Let's just say new information has come to light regarding Mr. Henderson's financial clarity. He wishes to resolve this matter amicably and swiftly, amicably, swiftly. Words I hadn't heard from their side in months. The next few days are a blur of negotiations. But the power dynamic has completely shifted. Mark is desperate. Devereaux is clearly under instructions to stop the bleeding. The Nightingale files, once dismissed as scurrilous, are now the unspoken leverage that hangs over every discussion. We don't even need to mention them explicitly. They know we have them, and they know Candace has seen them. The details of what transpired between Mark and Candace after our meeting remain deliciously unknown to me, at least directly. But the fallout is clear. Mark is a broken man. I see him once, briefly, when he comes to the house to sign some preliminary papers. He looks deflated. The smug arrogance is gone, replaced by a haunted, hollow look. He avoids my eyes. He's aged years in a matter of days. He doesn't speak to me, just signs where Sharon points, his hand trembling slightly. The man who stood so proudly, so cruelly, proposing to another woman at our daughter's graduation, is now a shadow. The climax isn't a fiery confrontation. It's this quiet, inexorable unraveling of his carefully constructed world. It's the satisfying click of puzzle pieces falling into place, a picture of justice emerging from the chaos. The final settlement is more than I could have hoped for. The house is mine, free and clear. I receive a substantial portion of the assets, enough to secure my future and Maya's. The spousal support is generous. He even agrees to pay all my legal fees. It's a complete capitulation. He's clearly terrified of what else I might have, what else Candace might do. And then, the news I've been waiting for, the final, perfect twist. It comes not through lawyers, but through the grapevine of mutual acquaintances, the same ones who whispered about my humiliation. Candace Morrow has left Mark Henderson. She didn't just call off the engagement. She packed her bags, hired her own aggressive lawyer. Apparently, she learned from the best or worst, depending on your perspective, and is extricating herself from his life as quickly and cleanly as possible. The reason? Irreconcilable financial discrepancies and a fundamental breach of trust. My evidence hadn't just shown her Mark was a liar to me. It showed he was a bad investment for her. His web of deceit, meant to secure his future with her, ended up destroying it. He tried to play everyone, and in the end, played himself. He thought he was trading up. He ended up with nothing. Less than nothing, because he also lost his reputation, his credibility. I imagine him, alone in his sleek, empty apartment, the apartment Candace no longer graces. The engagement ring probably returned or in hock. His grand plans for a new life, a new empire, all turned to dust. Not because of my rage, though that fueled my fight, but because of his own greed and deception, laid bare for the one person whose opinion suddenly mattered more to him than mine ever did. He didn't just lose his mistress, he was rejected by her, publicly, for the very reasons he should have been rejected by society. He was a fraud. He cried. That's the rumor. When Candace walked out, finally understanding the depth of his financial ruin and the lies he'd told her, Mark Henderson, the man who showed no remorse for my pain, apparently broke down and cried like a baby. The irony is so thick, so satisfying, it's almost poetic. He didn't cry for the 22 years he threw away with me. He didn't cry for the pain he inflicted on our daughter. He cried when his shiny new prize saw him for what he truly was, a con man whose luck had run out, and decided he wasn't worth the trouble. My victory isn't just about the money or the house. It's about this. It's about him facing the consequences of his actions, not through a court order, but through the direct rejection of the woman for whom he torched his entire life. He was blindsided, not by my anger, but by her pragmatism. He thought he was the player, but he was the one who got played. And I, the supposed victim, the scorned wife, simply provided the playbook. The aftermath is quiet.
Deceptively so.
The legal papers are signed, the account settled, the divorce finalized. Mark is a ghost in my past, a cautionary tale. The house, once a battleground, slowly begins to feel like home again. My home. Maya's home. We repaint the kitchen, a soft, hopeful sage green. We plant a new garden, filling it with bright, resilient flowers, not just sunflowers this time, but a vibrant mix, a testament to new beginnings. There's an emotional closure, of course, but it's complex. The anger has largely dissipated, replaced by a kind of weary peace. There's a lingering sadness, not for the man Mark became, but for the man I thought he was, for the dreams we once shared. That grief is a quiet undercurrent, a reminder of the depth of the betrayal, but it no longer has the power to drown me. I learn to sleep through the night again. I start seeing friends, real friends, the ones who stood by me. Laughter begins to echo in the house once more. Maya is thriving. She's re-enrolled in college for the fall semester, her eyes bright with anticipation. The shadow has lifted from her, replaced by a quiet strength, a maturity beyond her years. She saw me fight, she saw me fall, and she saw me get back up, not by seeking revenge in kind, but by using intelligence and truth to dismantle a web of lies. That, I hope, is the lesson she takes from this. Lessons learned? So many. I learned that I am stronger than I ever thought possible. I learned that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, from the person you trust the most. But I also learned that resilience is a powerful force, that truth, even when buried deep, has a way of coming to light. And I learned that sometimes the most satisfying victories are not loud and explosive, but quiet and precise, watching your adversary self-destruct on the very trap they set for you. There's a bittersweet quality to it all. I won. I won bigger than I could have imagined. Mark lost everything: his wife, his mistress, his money, his reputation. A part of me, the part that once loved him, feels a faint twinge of something akin to pity. But it's a fleeting emotion, quickly overshadowed by the memory of his cruelty, his arrogance, his utter disregard for the pain he inflicted. He authored his own misery. My evidence, the catalyst for Candace's departure, was simply the truth he tried so hard to conceal. She didn't leave him because he was unfaithful to me. She left him because he was a bad bet for her. And that, in a way, is the most profound justice of all. He wasn't brought down by my sorrow, but by his own flawed character, exposed to the one person he was trying to impress. The future stretches before me, uncertain, yes, but also filled with possibility. I'm thinking of going back to school, updating my teaching credentials. Or maybe something entirely new. The world has opened up in a way I never expected. I am no longer just Mark Henderson's wife. I am Eleanor. And that is more than enough. The story isn't just about a marriage ending. It's about a woman finding her voice, her strength, her worth, in the ashes of betrayal. It's about the quiet satisfaction of seeing a meticulously planned takedown succeed, not through vengeance, but through the irrefutable power of truth, strategically deployed. He cried when she walked out. And in a strange, detached way, I understand. He wasn't just losing a partner. He was losing the illusion of himself he'd tried so desperately to sell. And that, I suspect, was the cruelest cut of all. If this story hit close to home, perhaps you've seen a similar drama unfold, or even lived through your own version of truth prevailing against deceit. I'd love to hear your version, your perspective on how life can deliver its own unexpected twists. Thanks for being here, for listening to my journey from devastation to a quiet, hard-won victory. Subscribing helps bring more of these stories to life, stories of resilience, of finding light in the darkest of times.